And if you're really interested in like the what the lived experience was, then I'd say go down to third deck as well and see what the berthing was like. Imagine how smelly it would be when you're hanging out on the equator with 30 young men
Yeah.
without air conditioning or windows, and kind of imagine that sensory experience.
Yeah.
Um, so we don't type in the smells, but we encourage you to
You
imagine it.
should. That would be fun.
Um,
Through the halls of memories, brush strokes of history, capturing humanity. Stories left untold, whispers of the past, secrets they withhold. Yeah, yeah. The condition
And correct me if I'm wrong,
reborn.
I saw that the Intrepid was launched or created in 1943 for World War II, right?
Yes. So Intrepid was commissioned in 1943. They
Okay.
actually started working on it in December 1st, 1941. And of course, just a few days later was the attack on Pearl Harbor. So
Mm.
they actually decided to accelerate the construction of the ship. So they did it in about half the time. So in about a year and a half, they
Wow.
constructed the ship. And Intrepid actually served from 1943 until 1974, which is quite a long time for an aircraft carrier. So there's a lot
Really?
of rich history that we have to share here, which I feel very lucky to be able to do.
Yeah, and I saw that it was mainly not so much for what was going on in Europe, it went over to what was happening in Japan, right?
Correct.
Area.
So it was built in Newport News, Virginia, and they then had to bring it over to the Pacific so that it could fight in against Japan. That's where most of the American aircraft carriers were during World War II.
Oh.
And it actually, while they were bringing it through the Panama Canal, it actually got stuck for a little bit. So they had to do a few repairs once it came out on the other side to be able to
Oh,
get it ready to go off off into the Pacific. So.
wow.
Mhm.
And what exactly, just because I don't know a whole lot about war and stuff, what does decommissioned actually mean?
It basically means that it was retired. So
Okay.
it was its final decommissioning was in 1974. So the original plan was actually to scrap the ship. So basically repurpose parts of it, melt down and reuse the steel, take some of the equipment out, put it in other ships. There was, though, an effort led by the Fisher family to have the ship turned into a museum, which they successfully did. The ship then opened as a museum in 1982 at this location in New York City at Pier 86. But because of that, they had started to actually already remove a lot of the stuff from the ship in those years in between. So part of our task as a museum has been to decide which areas to restore to how they looked in historic condition, areas that are kind of left in the condition that they were when we found them, and then also making exhibition areas as well. So it's an interesting challenge. There are other ship museums that go straight from being a ship into being a museum. This
Right.
is one where there was some time in between that was not the original plan.
I'm assuming they take all the dangerous stuff away when they do that.
In terms of like weaponry and things like that, absolutely. In terms of asbestos and things of that nature, not so much. So that's kind of been one of our responsibilities when opening up a space is making sure that it's safe for visitors and staff.
Wow. Yeah, that's important. Talking about the history of things, I saw that you have been at the Intrepid for 11 years.
Yes, 11
Wow.
years. Yeah, I started in October of 2013.
Yeah. Why do you think you've been there so long? Like what originally attracted you to that and what kept you there?
Yeah, so when I first started working here, I was a part-time educator. So I was working at this museum as well as three others in New York City at the same time. And part of the reason that I wanted to work here was because I really appreciated that it was an immersive space, that it was a place where history happened.
Right.
Its largest artifact is the ship itself, which I thought was something really exciting and a little different from other places I had worked.
Sure.
And I also was interested in the accessibility programming that I knew they already had here. And so I was working here, and then I think it was about June of 2014, a position opened full time in the education department focused on the access team, and so I applied for that and transitioned into that role. And I've been working on on accessibility since then. So I think what keeps me here is that, we've had opportunities to keep growing our programming, adapting to the changing needs of our community, and having the opportunity to also work with colleagues in other departments. So doing stuff with visitor services, with our exhibitions team, with our digital team, which really keeps it exciting and interesting. So I've had the opportunity to grow in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I guess. So you said you worked at 3 museums at the same time?
At the time, I was working part-time at 4 different museums when I first started here.
Wow.
So it
Did
was
you
the
have a
life of
social life?
pieced it together. It was the life of the freelance museum educator. So that's how a lot of us get started in this field. So we work with a lot of freelance educators. So I try to remember back to when I was in that position and keep that in mind as I'm working with these colleagues too.
And I also saw, and tell me how this happens. You started in Louisville, you found yourself in London, then Hong Kong, then Poland, then DC, and now New York City.
Yeah.
What happened there?
That was I'm guessing that was my LinkedIn history
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. Always
Yeah,
looking.
I grew up in New York City, so
Okay.
I did live here, grow up here, going to New York City public schools, and when I was in college, I, you know, tried to take advantage of my summers as an opportunity to travel and kind of do internships and work in other places. So I did do an internship in Louisville, working at a youth program
Yeah.
in Louisville, which I loved. I also did spend a summer in London working at Christie's Education, interning there. And yeah, I did an internship in Hong Kong, working with foreign domestic workers there. And after college, I graduated right into the financial crisis. So I decided to spend a year teaching English in Poland, in Warsaw.
Wow.
So I had no personal connection to Poland, but I figured, when else am I going to go here? So I might as well try living here for a little bit
There you
before
go.
coming
Wow.
back
So you're a
here.
big deal. Huh?
I tried to get around when I
I
could.
guess. Yeah, you do. Okay. Another thing I have to ask, I'm sure you get this all the time.
Mhm.
The National Treasure Connection.
Oh, yeah.
Your name is Charlotte. In the
hmm
movie, like there was a ship called Charlotte.
Ben, I thought you said that the treasure would be on the Charlotte.
No, the secret lies with Charlotte.
And you work on the Intrepid, and he was on the Intrepid.
Third, sir.
Why is he heading there?
He's at the observation deck. Sadusky, I'm still not against you. But I found door number 3. And I'm taking it.
What's he talking about?
Move in! Move in! Move in on gates!
I think you've pieced it together. That's where the
Right. I
real.
think I'm understanding what's going on here.
Mhm.
Have you met Nicolas Cage?
I have not met Nicolas Cage. But that would be pretty exciting if he
It would
came
be.
back here. We have shown the movie on the flight deck during our summer movie series.
That's cool.
I haven't seen it on the flight deck, but I know at some point we did show it. It would have been cool if he kind of appeared behind the screen. Um, but
Yeah.
but yeah, we do. There are quite it is used quite a bit for film shoots and things like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
always fun.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I know it's in I Am Legend. And have you seen celebrities come visit you?
Not a ton, but they're around sometimes. We try to be discreet if there's a celebrity who comes for a VIP tour or something. We try to respect their privacy if they're trying to come without the crowds. So,
Right.
um, I know that when Adele was on tour and she was performing at Madison Square Garden, she got a tour here before we opened. I was not the tour guide for that, but we do have some. Which is always great to know that they're interested in bringing their families and all of that. And we've had some great honorees for our gala as well. Denzel Washington recently. and others, with other kinds of connections. A lot of great astronauts come through the museum also
Yeah,
for our
and it's
public
because
programs.
you actually have a space shuttle there as well,
Yes, so
right?
we have the Space Shuttle Enterprise, which was the prototype shuttle. So this was the one that NASA developed first and did all their testing on. So we have the space shuttle. The reason we have that space shuttle is because Intrepid, after World War II, was actually a recovery vessel for Mercury and Gemini missions. So they recovered an astronaut, Scott Carpenter, in 1962, and then Gus Grissom and John Young and their Gemini capsule in 1965. So we have this direct connection to NASA and the space race, as well as having the Space Shuttle Enterprise here.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, let's take a look at the space shuttle page.
Hmm.
This is the Space Shuttle Pavilion, and this is a young kid, I'm assuming, standing right in front of it, right?
Yes. So we like to say that you can get nose to nose with the space shuttle.
Oh,
Uh,
that's clever.
yes. So you can take the stairs or a lift up to the view deck so you can get up close, which is really nice because it gives you a very different perspective. And actually lets you kind of see up into the cockpit area, the flight deck area of the shuttle and get a different perspective.
Yeah, I see that right here. Take a look at this picture. So it looks like you can walk down these stairs and kind of go underneath it.
Yep. So when you walk into the Space Shuttle Pavilion, you kind of go through this little tunnel where there's audio with captions playing of one of the test flights for Enterprise. So you kind of hear
Okay.
that as you're going through, and as you emerge out of this tunnel, you're actually under one of the wings of the space shuttle. So it's
Wow.
we actually have a sign that says "Look up" because we'll make sure you see you are under the space shuttle. It is huge.
Yeah.
So you actually have the chance to walk around under it. Get up close to some of the different elements of the shuttle, and then you can go up to the view deck up at the stairs of the lift and get up close at
Yeah.
that level.
And I'm glad that you guys put this picture on your website. I always wondered, how do you get a space shuttle on an
Yeah.
aircraft carrier in New York City? And I'm assuming did it arrive by boat or something and then a crane?
Yes. So it flew into, I think it was JFK Airport on the back of a Boeing 747,
Wow.
which was when they were testing the space shuttles for their landing, that's how they tested them. They put it on the back of a Boeing 747, released the shuttle and let it kind of glide down to test it out. In this case, they did not have the shuttle glide. It landed on the back of the airplane, and then and then it was craned onto a barge and barged up the Hudson River
Yeah.
and craned onto the flight deck. So it's on the flight deck of the ship, and we built the tent around it. That's always a question we get: is how did you fit it into this? We built
Right.
the tent around the shuttle.
That's smart. So let's talk about the actual Intrepid. I think a good way to do that is you guys actually have an interactive map
Hmm.
on your website. So this is the flight deck, so the top part that you would see
Yes.
if you were, let's say, driving by or anything like that, right?
Yes, this is what you would see if you were, flying overhead, looking down from a nearby skyscraper, the flight deck, because that is about 4 stories up. So
Okay.
you would see if you're coming down the West Side Highway, whether you're biking, walking, or driving, you can actually see the back of the A-12, which is a 1960s spy plane, kind of sticking off the front of the ship at the top, as well as a little bit of our F-14 Tomcat. So those are at the very front of the ship, and that's what you can see. And then if you go to the next pier over, one pier south, you can actually get a whole nice side view of the starboard side of the ship, or the right side of the ship if you're not familiar with ship terminology, and kind of get a nice full view of the ship that way.
That's cool. And I like that on this map, where you can click on any of these,
Hmm.
and this little thing slides over on the side here. So there's your Tomcat, right?
Yes.
And over here is your Lockheed A-12 aircraft.
Yes, that's the one that it looks like Will Smith is knocking golf balls off of in I Am
Oh, okay.
Legend.
Okay. And then I don't know with this one, this is kind of egg-shaped. That looks very strange.
Yeah.
A tracer aircraft.
Yes, so that's
What does
the
a tracer
tracer.
aircraft do?
Yeah, so that dome on top that looked kind of egg-shaped, that
Yeah.
is a radar dome. So Intrepid's radar had a range of about 200 miles or so. This allowed them to kind of see out even farther. And that dome on top is actually pretty cool. It's actually shaped a little bit like a wing. So even though it's adding extra weight, adding some drag, the wing the wing shape helps it also generate some lift as it's going up. So those were used. Intrepid was using those in the 1960s, including when it was serving in the Vietnam War, to
Oh,
kind of get a wider view.
that's cool. And talking about airplanes on the top deck, I saw this picture right here. This is from 1944. Look at the top of that. They
Hmm.
are all jam-packed in there with not like, it looks like they're almost touching, and there's hundreds of them. It's amazing.
Yeah. So during World War II, Intrepid would be carrying up to about 100 airplanes at a time. They were kept largely on the flight deck. They were also stored in the hangar deck, which is the big kind of garage level inside the ship.
Okay.
There were three aircraft elevators to help with that. But yeah, they were largely kept outside on the flight deck and were brought inside for repair work, painting, and other stuff. That's why they all have folding wings because you have to really pack them in.
Right, that's smart.
Hmm.
And so while let's say we're standing on the top here, I'm assuming there's a staircase or something that takes us to the gallery deck. I don't see a whole much going on here, but then I
Yeah.
see the hangar deck.
Hmm.
It looks like you have a lot of stuff going on here. So is
Yes.
this where the majority of the inside aircrafts are?
Yes. So most of the aircraft are on in the museum are on the flight deck, and then we also have them in the hangar deck. So
Okay.
the hangar deck was, like I said, the garage of the ship. So we currently have three airplanes and one helicopter inside the hangar deck. We are actually going to soon be getting. We actually got another aircraft on long-term loan to the museum, which will be going into the hangar deck in 2025. So we're
Oh,
excited about that to add a
yeah.
Corsair to our collection. We also do have parts of an airplane that was recovered off the coast of Japan that we
Yeah.
learned that we're pretty sure flew off of Intrepid. It was a Corsair. So we're really excited to be able to tell that story. That's a relatively new addition to our collection. So that's where the hangar deck is where most of our interpretation is, most of our exhibition space. But some of those other areas, like the gallery deck or the island on top of the flight deck, and third deck down below, those are some of the kind of living and workspaces that we've been able to recreate and interpret as well.
And then if we go down in this map, so we're on
Hmm.
the hangar deck here, we have the third deck,
Yes.
which I don't see a whole lot going on. Or is this food? Is that what that is?
So that's where one of our cafes is. And then they also have some of the historic spaces. So we have the machine shop. One of the galleys or kitchens that was on the ship is there, as well as some of the mess areas or eating areas, and some of the berthing or bedrooms on the ship. So only part of it is open to the public. There's some offices in some of the other areas, but it's also the cafe and cafeteria.
So is that where you are right now?
So I'm actually on the gallery deck, which is that level between the flight deck and the hangar deck. We have two sections of it that are open to the public. Most of the rest of it is used as office space and storage space. So all of the offices are on the ship itself.
Wow, that's cool. So let me come back here.
Hmm.
Let's go here, gallery deck. So where are you here physically right now?
Yeah, so I am.
Like where? Tell me where to move my mouse. Where am I going?
So if you go to that center area,
Yeah.
that area, so I'm actually kind of right where that mouse is.
Oh, really?
So
Like
I'm right
maybe
on the
around here?
I'm right on the other side right on the other side of my wall here is that area that your mouse is on right now,
Okay.
basically.
That's
So
very cool.
I sometimes hear kind of voices, kind of detached from anyone around me, and that's usually, kids who are going through the exhibits on the other
Wow.
side of this wall.
That's very cool. So every day to go to work, you drive to a giant battleship.
Oh, I usually take the subway, but yeah.
Oh, you do? Yeah. New York
Others
City's like,
others drive, but yeah, I take the
yeah.
subway and then walk over to an aircraft carrier.
Wow. So do you live in New York City?
Yes, yeah. So I live in Brooklyn. Most of our staff live in New York City or New Jersey.
That's cool. And then I noticed the last part of this interactive map is actually not the actual ship. It's Pier 86.
Hmm.
Here, I'm assuming is the submarine that I saw on your website. Is it a
Yes.
nuclear submarine called the Growler? Is that correct?
So it's the submarine Growler. It is a little bit unusual in that it carried nuclear weapons, so it carried Regulus missiles, but it was itself diesel powered. So it's actually a transition submarine in that they were needed to be able to carry nuclear weapons, but they hadn't yet developed nuclear-powered submarines. So this submarine and its sister ship were kind of used for a few years in this kind of interim period where they could carry nuclear weapons, but were not nuclear-powered. So because of that, it wasn't able to submerge as long as the nuclear-powered submarines because you need air in order to operate a diesel engine. So you have to, you can't cut yourself off for too long.
So here's the page. So this is the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm
Sail.
assuming the Intrepid is on where the camera is. of the
Yeah,
ship.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And let me come back here. So it said it was once top secret. Very cool. And was this also a World War II? Oh, actually,
No, this
no,
was
but-
Cold War. Yeah, this was
Oh.
after World War II.
okay. The control room. And so can people go into all these rooms that you're showing pictures of?
Yeah, so you kind of stay on a path. You don't necessarily go step off the path into those rooms
Sure.
because they are delicate, so we want to maintain those. But you walk through from end to end, which is pretty cool. It does require going downstairs and going through some narrow hatches, and it is a tight space, so we like to make sure people know about that beforehand. There is a practice hatch people go through, and but that's all open. So you can go through, the control room, you go past the galley or the kitchen, you go through the eating areas, you go past where the captain's room was, you go to past the radio room, and through the engine room where it still smells like diesel, and then through the different berthing areas. And we've recently kind of added some additional interpretation in those spaces, added some artifacts and other things, which is pretty cool. Now, we recognize that not everyone is able to go through that space. So we also, several years ago, opened an exhibition on the pier, in a tent on the pier next to that is accessible and has a lot of interpretation. So there's kind of half of it is addressing life on the submarine, what it was like to actually live and work on the submarine. There's oral histories and other components. And then there's also the Cold War context for this submarine, kind of what its mission was and kind of how it fit into that greater context.
Yeah, very cool. So let me go here. This is the main Intrepid page
Mhm.
on your website, and this looks gigantic. I've only seen it in movies and pictures and stuff, but let's say you were to walk from one end to the other end. How long does that take?
When your exhibits are outdoors and there is no electricity and no wall labels, how can you help guests explore those exhibits? The 42 Kites premium devices work great in sun-drenched meadows, rain-soaked trails, and snow-covered landscapes. They work anywhere you want them to. Only at 42kites.com.
Well, I'll say it's 912 feet long. So it's as long as about 3 football fields. So, I mean, it takes a couple minutes if, usually you get distracted by the amazing aircraft that we have around you, or maybe a pigeon that is, walking along the flight deck. But, a couple of minutes. And so it is pretty long. The Space Shuttle Pavilion is kind of that last section. But you can obviously go into that and then cover the entire length of the ship that way.
And so what does the term Intrepid Island mean?
So the island refers to that superstructure that's on top, that's sticking up from the top of the flight deck.
Oh, hold on. Let me see. So this right here, this
yeah.
is the island.
Yeah, and it's nicknamed that because it's like an island on top of the ship. But it's one of the challenges we have here is the terminology on ships is different than in other places. So, you would also say that's where the captain's bridge is, the navigation bridge, the admiral's bridge, with of course bridge being used differently than, we use that on land. So
the bridges are on the island.
Yes, so the bridges are on the island.
Okay.
So it's different terminology. So that's something we try to be really aware of when we're trying to give people directions or labeling things on the map. But that's where where they would steer the ship. That's where the communications we're actually a little bit below that, but all the equipment is up above. And so not all of it is open to the public, but several of the main spaces are, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And then I see, and I guess this makes sense, that aircrafts would need to be restored after they leave service. And so this gentleman is doing that. Is that actually done on the Intrepid, or is it done in a warehouse somewhere and then it's brought back?
Yeah, most of our aircraft restoration work is done on site by our aircraft restoration team. They do amazing work. Now, of course, they're not, restoring things for flight. They're really about, maintaining the integrity of the aircraft for display and for future study. So it's a little bit different than if, we were trying to make these flight worthy. But we basically rotate the aircraft that they're working on, and they have a tent on the it's a little bit more than a tent, a pavilion on the flight deck as well. And so they are constantly working on aircraft. They kind of rotate the aircraft that are on the flight deck through there, just because being out in the elements, rain or shine, snowstorm, all conditions, even though, we paint them, take care of them, clean them, after a few years, they do need a little bit extra care. So they'll actually rotate bringing them in, which is really great. And then if we get a new aircraft in our collection, they'll also do work on it there. So right now we actually have 2 aircraft in there. We have a Crusader that they're, I think, finishing up with soon. And then we also have that new aircraft, the Corsair, that we recently brought to the museum. So they're getting that ready for display. And that's actually going to be displayed in the hangar deck. So it's really great because they're on staff. They work, they're in there almost every day. And it's great because actually when we have education programs for some of them, we can actually bring some of our groups in there, especially some of our longer touch groups to, do work on that and learn about, use some of the tools that they use in there, do projects in there. Our aircraft restoration team is really great working with our different audiences and is really receptive to sharing their work with others. So it's a really great collaboration we have with them.
Another thing I think that's pretty cool, and I haven't done this yet. I wanted to wait to connect with you to actually do this. Obviously, we want people to go there and go on the actual ship, but on your website, you can go on a virtual tour.
Yes.
So if I click on this, let's see what happens. I've never done this before. So,
Okay.
Which one should I click on?
So let's try one that you wouldn't be able to, that isn't as accessible. Like if you go to the forecastle, so that's
Forecastle. Where's that?
bottom right there with the
Bottom
chains.
right. Okay, let's click on this. Oh, look at this.
So these are the anchor chains.
Yeah.
And so this is an area of the ship that's accessible only by stairs.
Okay.
So this is the very, very front of the ship. It's on that gallery deck level between the hangar deck and the flight deck. And this is where the anchor chains would release to drop anchor. During World War II, there were actually no walls in this space, which is pretty wild to imagine. It was totally open air. But so that's a space, and you can actually travel through and go through the different spaces. So it's really great when we do virtual programs. We will actually not just show pictures, we'll actually move through the space. So whether it's the hangar deck, the flight deck, or anything else, we'll use that. Also,
it looks like I can move my mouse over here and click, and look at that. We're kind of walking through.
Yeah, so you can walk through the different spaces. And it's pretty nifty because we can use it for virtual programs, but also we can let people know, if you're not able to come here, or if you can come here, but you're not able to use the stairs for whatever reason, here's a way for you to actually see what this looked like. It's not exactly the same experience, but you get the chance to look around, kind of control your view. So that's really important to us. And so almost all of our public spaces in the museum are available on Google Arts and Culture. We also are on the Bloomberg Connects app, as are a lot of New York City cultural institutions. And that also includes things like audio description of our different exhibits and a lot of the interpretation. So whether you're in the space or not, you can still access that information, which is important to us.
Yeah, sure. We'll talk about accessibility again when we get there, but I'm assuming this is what you were talking about. Like you have to go up these stairs. Is that
Yep. So you would go up those stairs from the hangar deck or down the stairs on the left from the flight deck.
Oh, okay. So we go up here as the flight deck.
So yeah, there's one more kind of intermediate level, and then you get to the flight deck.
Oh,
there's some berthing up there, but yeah.
And so this is done by Google Arts and Culture. That's cool.
Yeah, we also so there's different spaces.
Yeah. Let me click on another one. Let's go to this one. I know this is a space that everyone. Oh, I see what you're saying about the wings, by the way.
Yeah, so the wings fold back.
Yeah.
So on all the aircraft that have enough of a wingspan, the wings fold back. And that's how you know that an aircraft was designed for an aircraft carrier. There's no reason to put folding wings and add that extra weight if you don't need to fit into tight spaces.
Right. So was this like an original propeller that I'm looking at
Yep,
here?
this was one of the 4 propellers. So there are many reasons why Intrepid can't go on its own anymore, but that is a big one. The propellers are
Lack
no
of a
longer
propeller.
attached.
Yeah.
So it's nice to actually be able to show that for scale as
Yeah.
well. So that was one of 4. They had bronze propellers, so they wouldn't rust in the water.
Wow. And there's some sort of, let me know what this is, some sort of bell or something?
Yeah, so that was the commissioning bell. So when they
Oh.
commissioned or brought the ship into service, they had this bell to commemorate that occasion. There's also a decommissioning bell on the other end.
Okay, so they had one bell for when they put it into
Mhm.
action, one for when they took it out.
Right.
Wow. So one thing I like to ask of everyone I talk with is, what's your favorite exhibit?
Uh, I had a feeling this was going to come up. It's so hard to say because
You have to pick one
I
now.
know it's the full, it's the full story.
Yeah.
And I'll say right now, one of the exhibitions that I enjoy, and I really, love everything, but we actually right now have an exhibition up about Intrepid's photo lab. Intrepid, when it was in service, it had a crew of 3,000 typically at a time. And uh, part of that crew was the photography mates. These were people who took photos and also developed and processed all those photos. They had a ton of photography, every takeoff, every landing, daily life on the ship, any repair work, all of that was documented. And so they actually had dark rooms on the ship. And so our curatorial team, figured out around where the dark rooms would have been. They would have been on the hangar deck. And so they actually recreated a section of the photo lab in the hangar deck. So it's not in our Google Arts and Culture because we added this after we did that. But I really love it because they kind of recreated how it would have looked. It's kind of the room where you have the oh my gosh, the word is escaping me.
The dark room kind
Yeah, so it's the part where you actually would, expand
Like
it, put it
develop
onto the
the film.
paper and do the printing. But in that, they designed it where there's a lot of red lighting around it, so it really feels like you're in that kind of space.
Yeah.
The exhibition cases, which have this historic cameras, an example of photos look like they have a film strip at the bottom. And I really love that our exhibitions team really thinks about the design so that it matches kind of the topic. So there's really, I mean, I did some photography in college, so I love having all these cameras here and having these stories from the photographers' mates and kind of hearing from them what that experience was like. So I really like when we can kind of bring out some of these less expected stories. We had an exhibition years ago. It was a temporary exhibition, so it's not there anymore, about cake on Intrepid and
Right.
cake in the Navy. And that one, has a giant cake. We actually still have the giant cake out that people can touch to actually see and touch, just get a sense of how huge these cakes were if you're making a cake for the whole crew. It's like this 8-foot long cake for Intrepid's 25th anniversary. And when you went into the exhibition, it looked like you were walking into a slice of cake, and all the display cases were kind of shaped like cake, but they had color and design to tell you what theme you were in. And they had, the giant mixers that they used. They had the smaller one for the submarine. You could really compare the quantities of those. And then it was also an opportunity to talk about stewards and kind of the way, the type of segregation that happened on the ship at different points in its service because of the different types of roles people were allocated. And also a chance to talk about, how they kind of maintained morale on a ship like this over long periods of time. So I really like those stories we get to tell.
Yeah.
So those smaller exhibitions we have that kind of recreate those experiences, I think, are some of my
Well, good.
favorites.
Now we have 2 things to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I found the cake.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
Yep.
And that's 8 feet long.
About
Mm.
I'd estimate about that. It's very long. And
I like the planes on top. That's
yep,
cool.
they had done that. So that was in 1968. Those were made out of frosting. And so ours, of course, are not made out of frosting, but
Sure.
it is actual size. That's really what it looked like. And so it's really nice to be able to actually show that to people, just to give people a sense of what it meant to have a cake for 3,000 people. And it's really great because, we'll do verbal description and touch tours for visitors who are blind or low vision. And so it's great to also be able to include that. And it's not just behind glass, it's not just a photo, but it is something much more, tactile and immersive.
Yeah. And then, so here's your current favorite exhibit, Photo Lab.
Yes.
And you can see the red lights that would develop photos back in the day.
Yep. So you have that. And then at the bottom, that's one of the kind of information label cases. And you can see it looks like a film strip there. So it's just kind of fun to have all that.
Yeah.
And then you have, great
I see
camera
that.
equipment.
Yeah.
And it's great because we've done a number of programs with different audiences, and it's given us an opportunity to kind of build in, photography into those programs. So some of our sensory friendly programs for children, teens and adults with autism and other disabilities, we've brought in some folks to do workshops with them. We've also done veteran photography workshops. So it's really a nice way to kind of bridge, arts and history and science through something like that.
So I know that there's a page on your website about accessibility. Accessibility. Here we go. Look at this. So it's probably a good spot to give a shout out to Maddie from the Museum of Natural Science for making this connection.
Yes.
She is awesome. So do you two, I'm assuming at some point in the past, have sort of compared notes? Because a few of the things that you said about accessibility, I recall her saying about accessibility.
Yes. So she and some of her colleagues had reached out years ago, when they were starting up some of their accessibility work or trying to expand it. And actually, we have met several times. So I think they actually did a visit here. We've also met up at the American Alliance of Museums conference over the years and kind of exchanged ideas and talked over things. So it's been really exciting to hear how much their work has grown there. And it was fun listening to watching her interview just to get more updates on that. But yeah, we've been able to keep in touch a bit over the years as we do that, because that's such a huge part of, I think, museum work, museum education work, and especially museum accessibility work, is that exchange of ideas and resources with colleagues, because we're all in it together, and we want to make the field.
I think that's the exact phrase that she said.
Generally, in an accessibility work, everyone is so willing to support and help each other. They're not like gatekeeping anything. They want you to succeed, right? Because we're all working towards making our institutions more inclusive in general, and that's the goal.
Like, there's no competition between you two, right? That
Right.
you are all working together for accessibility for your guests, and that's beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what are sensory bags?
Yeah, so we have a number of resources available on site and online. So one of the things are sensory bags. These are available at the information desk to borrow. These include things like noise reduction headphones, as well as fidgets. So, and then also some visual vocabularies and other kind of resources people can use to focus a visit. So these can be really helpful for someone who's sensitive to sound. They may not realize or anticipate that it might be noisy here or crowded. So, they can borrow headphones, whether or not they usually use them, to kind of help them focus that. For others who, are really sensory seeking, like to be touching, like to be constantly moving, having the fidgets in there can help, focus their attention, or help them kind of release some of that need to, be moving or touching. So those are things that are available for anyone to borrow. Our information desk staff are really lovely, and they, are well trained and, do great customer service. So they are also really great at kind of very kindly offering the bag to folks if they notice that someone might benefit from having something to play with or having a headphone if they're covering their ears. So that training is part of what makes it such a helpful resource.
And then it says here that you have a verbal description and tactile guide. It says tactile guides use raised images, braille and large pen, and a large print and a talking pen. How does that all work?
Yeah, so that is also available to borrow. It's a spiral bound book, and it has raised line maps of the museum, as well as tactile images. So they're not fully three-dimensional, they're just raised. So it's really just to kind of give you a sense of the shape of something. And you can use the talking pen to actually, let you know what something is, and then give you an audio description of that. So kind of describing what it looks like, its features, and then you can tap again for kind of more context about it. So that's available for people to borrow. The great thing is that content is also available in our Bloomberg Connects app. So if someone prefers not to carry the book around, they can access that same information in Bloomberg Connects.
Yeah.
If people also are interested, we can also arrange for verbal description touch tours for them as well. So we try to make it so people can access this information in different ways for what works best for them.
And what are induction loops? I see that.
Yeah, so the induction loops are basically to help people with certain types of hearing aids access audio more directly. So you might have, if you have a hearing aid, you might have one with a T-coil in it, where if you turn that on, if you're standing within that loop, and it's literally a loop of copper wire, then the audio will be sent directly into your hearing aid. So you'll be able to hear it more clearly. So for our exhibitions that have audio, if there's any audio, we have captioning, and then we'll also, for most of them, have a hearing loop. So if you're standing within that loop, you can turn that on. We also have it at the box office. Some of the desks have the hearing loop also. So it's just a way to help with hearing accessibility.
Yeah, that's great. And also see it says service animals welcome, but I'm assuming not the really mean dogs in I Am Legend.
Yeah, I don't think they would have passed their service dog training, those dogs.
Probably not.
Yeah, so no zombie dogs.
No zombie dogs.
But we try to we want to make sure that people know that it's welcome. They don't have to arrange in advance. And we also want to make sure that people know that the flight deck can get very hot in the summer because it's made out of steel. So it's also a place for us to make sure people know that so that they can bring booties to protect their dog's paws. So we want people to know service dogs are welcome. We want to make sure people with disabilities are able to access the space. Don't want that to be a barrier. But we also want people to know that they might need to have some protection for their dog's paws if they come on the flight deck in the summer.
Yeah. And then I also see for visitors with disabilities, you have something, and then we'll share the screen real quick here. Let's go here. You have something called the All Access Maker Camp.
Yes.
Where you're solving problems, experimenting with new tools, technology, designing projects, and making friends. That sounds great. Tell me more about that, more than from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, so All Access Maker Camp, we started that, I think it was in 2016. These are week-long camps for neurodivergent children and teens. So this is for children and teens with developmental disabilities, including autism, and it's week-long camps that take place during public school spring break in New York City, as well as at the end of August. So that way those students who are in 12-month schools are able to attend. And these programs, have a lot of staff, and so that campers can get individualized attention. And it basically takes inspiration from real challenges on the ship and that related to our space shuttle and other collections to inspire design challenges. So that way kids who, are maybe interested in transportation or aircraft or space, really have the chance to turn these interests into a way to try new things, get the chance to do types of projects and challenges they might not get the chance to do in school because, they might not have the same access to those things as neurotypical students. So it's really about, taking a strengths-based approach, giving campers the supports that make it possible for them to participate fully and be able to try things that they might not otherwise. And so we keep it low cost. We do have an application. So we want to make sure the kids will meld together well. Sure. But it's super fun. We have a version called Camp 2.0 for returning campers. And we recently started a counselor and training program where alum of the camp can apply for a paid internship helping out with the campus CITs. And so we just piloted that and it went really well. So we're excited to keep that going.
That's cool. And it looks like you guys also have early morning openings where the museum's not so crazy.
Yes. So the museum is before the museum opens to the public. So we have early morning openings for children and we have sensory friendly evenings for teens and adults. And so the idea with these programs is that those with autism or other, sensory sensitivities can come to the museum without having to worry about crowds, noise, judgment from other visitors, because unfortunately, that can be a problem. We make sure our staff and volunteers are trained, so they're not going to get judgment or attitude from our team, but we can't control for everyone. And also so that it's, they know it's a safe place. If they or their child tends to wander or run off, they know it's safe. They're not going to get lost in the crowd. And, we send out things ahead of time, like a social narrative to help them prepare, get to know what to expect. And we include, a lot of multisensory kind of activities during this. So it's a fun way. It's also free. So if you're concerned about how much time you're going to be able to spend here, you didn't have to like pay for admission here. You get to really do that without that being a barrier. So for those, we start off before the museum opens to the public, and then once the museum opens, we keep the Explorium, which is our kind of interactive area, closed off for another hour, where we do more activities related to the theme of the day. So we have different themes each time. So it's really fun. We've had some kids kind of grow up through that program. And then for the sensory friendly evening, it's for teens and adults. And that takes place after hours because as we learned when we tried doing an early morning opening for teens and adults don't always want to wake up super early on a Saturday morning to come to the museum.
Yeah, it's true.
But we want to make sure we have things for people of all ages. And I'll say some of those resources like the social narrative, we actually also have on the website. So that way people, if they want to come on their own, but just want to kind of know what to expect, they can still have that.
You guys have the Concorde.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it could cross the Atlantic in 2 hours and 50 something minutes.
So yeah, the fastest ever flight from New York City to London was with the Concorde that we have on display here. And it was it was just under 3 hours was that fastest flight. So
And was there only one Concorde or was there others?
No, there were several, both British Airways and Air France Concordes. We have one of them though, and we have the one that has the fastest record, the fastest flight from New York to London. So we feel pretty special about having that.
Yeah, of course. I also like this shot of that plane flying over New York City.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
it's very cool because it used to fly out of JFK Airport here in New York to London Heathrow. So, and there were other ones that flew to Paris. So it is really cool to have that because that was such a part of, history here. People remember, people who live near the airports remember watching them take off, kind of hearing that bang in the distance. So it's definitely something people are very nostalgic for. So it's great that we can continue that story here.
Yeah. And help me sort of position myself. It's been a long time since I've been to New York City. So where is the Intrepid? It's over here,
So
right?
the Intrepid's actually not visible here because this is
but I mean like the location. Would it be in this area? Or
No. So you can't actually see the location here because we're on the west side of Manhattan. What you're seeing here is the lower tip of Manhattan, the east, and that's the East River going up. So if you kind of follow along, that's Brooklyn on the right. So you have the Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, the Williamsburg Bridge. If you go north, there's Roosevelt Island. So so it's the east side of Manhattan. We're on the west side of Manhattan.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, we are actually, if you go to 42nd Street, Times Square, and you go west, you'll get to us. So we're at 46th Street and 12th Avenue. So you can take any train to Times Square and you'll eventually get here. You can also take a bus. You don't have to walk.
You can also take a bus?
Yeah.
Okay. Somewhere on your website talks about the Apollo 11.
Yes.
And then I'm assuming we're talking a lot about that because that was the space shuttle.
So the reason we were talking about Apollo 11 is it's because we had a temporary exhibition that recently closed. So that might be also why it's not as easy to find now on the website. We had an exhibition that was open until Labor Day this year. So it opened in the spring and it opened in the winter and was open until Labor Day. And this exhibition was a traveling exhibition called Apollo When We Went to the Moon. And so it started kind of its travels during the 50th anniversary of the Apollo mission. So in 2019, at that time, we actually had our own kind of small exhibition about kind of people reacting to the moon landing because, Intrepid's crew members remember that. And that was such a big part of that. And, the missions that the capsules that Intrepid recovered were doing, especially that Gemini mission, were in preparation for the Apollo missions. So over the summer, though, and a little bit earlier, we had Apollo When We Went to the Moon, which was a really fun traveling exhibition. And we were able to actually use that exhibition to inspire a lot of the design challenges we did during All Access Maker Camp this year. We had some sensory friendly programs in there as well. We did some virtual verbal description programs. And so that one was just great because it's one that, people who were around then really remember. And
Yeah.
it was really great to see so many kind of mixed generation groups go through the exhibition and kind of, people share those memories and imagine what it would have been like. So it was really cool for that experience of being able to be a part of that.
Your museum website says it's inclusive. But what happens if a guest doesn't speak English? The 42 Kites premium devices translates your exhibit text into over 100 different languages. Even Zulu. Only at 42kites.com.
And then you also have this called Stories of the Intrepid, the 4D experience. So
Mm-hmm.
are people, and I think it's this, right? So we're sitting in some sort of chair, we have these goggles on, and we're
Yeah.
moving around. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, so that one is, you sit in these chairs that can like vibrate. So it's like a
Yeah,
4D
yeah.
movie, the chairs can vibrate. You have a 3D glasses on, and so that kind of follows a few different stories of pilots on Intrepid. So you kind of feel like you're flying in the airplane with them and moving around. We have a couple of other of those types of experiences that people can get tickets for. So we work with
And
a company to help do those.
yeah, and that's another thing. So I see on this page right here, it says price, general 11, museum members 8. So
Mhm.
are we paying extra for this? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so those are extra tickets for those experiences.
Okay, I
Yeah,
got
we don't charge extra for any of our temporary exhibitions or anything like that. Everything's included, except any of those things.
It looks like that, and you have to tell me about this. People can sleep on this aircraft carrier. It's called
Yeah.
Overnight.
Yeah,
I
so
can stay overnight on board the Intrepid and find out what it's like to live, eat, and sleep aboard an aircraft carrier for
mhm.
ages 5 to 7. Does that mean I can't do this?
If you are chaperoning a young
Okay.
person, I think it's 5 to 17. So it's called Operation Slumber, and these take place on weekends throughout the year. So it's a lot of youth groups, scout groups, but also families will come. And yeah, you're sleeping in the hangar deck for the most part. And so you
Yeah,
get
I
to,
have this picture right here. It looks
yeah,
like
so
the
we bring
cots are
out
right
cots.
under an aircraft.
Yeah, so they set up the cots, and so you're really in the hangar deck, and you get to explore the museum. They have tours and other kind of experiences throughout the night. So it's a pretty fun time and pretty special and different, definitely than anywhere else in New York City that you can do an overnight.
Yeah, that's very cool. And another really cool thing is it looks like you got to have a lot of money to do this. You can host your event
Yes.
right on it, and that's
Mhm.
amazing. And you also have multiple areas where someone could host an event. Like you could host it on the inside, but I saw down here you could host it like right on the flight deck. Like these two are getting
Yeah.
married right on the top. That's amazing. How much does it cost to get married on the flight deck of the Intrepid?
Oh,
Give me a general about.
I am not the right person to ask,
Oh,
but
you're not? Okay.
we do have an amazing events team, and they work with our vendors and partners to really transform the place. So, there are some weddings here. I know there's also a lot of corporate events, and every once in a while, a bar mitzvah, and kind of other big parties. So they do a really beautiful job, transforming the ship, whether the inside spaces or the flight deck, into a really special place. And it's
Yeah.
great for external events for people who want to rent out the museum. It's great because I have friends and other people who come to the museum who are like, I've only ever been here for a party or an event. It's nice to see the museum. So it's nice that people can come for both.
That's really cool. And like what we were talking about before, it says film and TV shoots, fashion shows, concerts, movie screenings. I can almost feel Nicolas Cage looking at this very page
Yeah.
and feel his energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, we've been in all sorts of film and television. I think National Treasure is probably the one that people bring up the most. So
Yeah, that's very cool.
it is pretty cool, and it's always fun when that's happening.
You had mentioned this before, but we have dining options here. We have 2 dining options. We have the Aviator Grill and we have the Intrepid Marketplace.
Yes.
Now, the big question is, you're here all the time.
hmm
What's your favorite food? What are you eating when it's lunchtime and you're working? I'm assuming you're going to eat here.
Yeah.
Tell us what's the best.
If I'm ordering lunch here, I'm probably going downstairs to the marketplace and getting the tuna melt.
tuna
I enjoy that. During the warmer weather months, we also have ice cream, so that's my go-to treat. During certain times of year, we also have food, they have a stall on the pier, so that's really nice to get something refreshing and sit out there. So yeah, they have some good stuff, and it's nice because you can eat in those spaces, but you can also go outside and eat on the pier. So we like to, a lot of the staff in the summer and the spring like to do what we call Concord lunch, where we sit under the Concord in the shade out on the pier and eat our lunch there, whether we bring it or buy it at the museum. So it's one of the nicer places, I think, to actually have a meal in the city is under the Concord on the pier. So you can just, get your food here and bring it over and enjoy the view.
So I clicked on the menu
hmm
of the marketplace, and here we go. We have cheesy melts, hot subs.
hmm
So I'm assuming, so you're ordering the cheesy melt, and you're
Yeah.
saying add some tuna to that.
Yeah, there's a few different options. I think there's like a
Okay.
pastrami and a chicken, and I get the tuna.
You get the tuna. Good choice.
I'm on a ship, so it feels appropriate.
It really does.
hmm
And let's take a look at your Instagram page. Not you personally.
Right.
Chip's
hmm
Instagram page. Specifically this one down here. Where is it? And of course, right here. So I don't think the audio play, but this is someone talking about all the different benefits of being a member.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart of you guys to post that on social media, getting the word out. Do you guys have like a social media team that's doing all this?
Yeah, so we have a main person who works on social media. She is really great. She's really proactive about reaching out to different departments and different folks to get content. So I assume that was a collaboration with our membership team to tell that story, and I really enjoyed that reel as well. Watching the member kind of be able to cut the lines and get ahead and get some behind the scenes access. So for example, she reached out to me I think either yesterday or today about Military Family Appreciation Month next week, and trying to do some posts about that, since we do a lot of work with military and veteran families. So it's great for us to be able to work with her and some of the other colleagues in the marketing department to get that out. So yeah, and it's gotten over the years, it's been fun to see it get more creative and more responsive to folks as well. So
Yeah.
we have a nice team here.
I can't click on this because then it goes away. But
Mm-hmm.
what is with I'm calling it a Captain America shield on this submarine? Is that the submarine that you guys have there?
I haven't seen that post. My guess
okay.
is that it would be, but I mean that you'll often see that Captain America shield. You actually see it on a lot of the aircraft because that is the Navy Star. So that just shows that it's an American aircraft or vessel. So
Right.
a lot of the airplanes and helicopters, any of the American ones we have that, and so it's kind of a fun connection for kids who are familiar with the Avengers and Captain America. So
Yeah.
it's a nice kind of connection for them and kind of a nice jumping off point. One of our aircraft is actually named the Avenger. So
Ah,
that can be a nice hook for some of our Marvel fans.
what is this gentleman looking at through this telescope here?
Yeah, so we have astronomy nights several times throughout the year. And as part of the astronomy nights, we'll have speakers come from NASA, including astronauts sometimes. We'll have demonstrations related to kind of space science and workshop activities. And one of the cool things is that we also have local amateur astronomers bring their telescopes and set up on the flight deck. And so, we don't think of New York City as, a great place for stargazing, but there are things you can see on a clear night. And so it's really nice for us to be able to bring on these folks to actually show people what you can see in New York City. So, and with a telescope, especially, that you can, you might get the chance to see Saturn's rings, or maybe you can really see the moon's craters. And if it's overcast, they'll kind of point at other things in the skyline. So, they make it work no matter the weather, but it's nice to be able to show people like there are things you can see in New York City.
Yeah.
I'll say, we recently saw the Northern Lights here. That was pretty exciting.
Oh,
Not during
yes,
an
I
astronomy
remember.
night, but
Right,
you
yeah.
never know what you're going to see in the sky here.
I remember that. Yeah, that was
Hmm.
recently.
Yeah. The astronomy nights are part of our Free Fridays, which we do on usually the last Friday of the month, April through September. And so it's a really fun way for people to come to the museum, and we always add something extra. So it might be an astronomy night, sometimes it's a movie night, sometimes it's both. But
Yeah.
it's great to kind of open up the museum in that way.
Yeah. And I see on the Intrepid's YouTube page, there's sort of a subcategory called Behind the Scenes.
Hmm.
Are you featured in any of these?
I don't think I'm in any of
Oh, no.
those. A lot of those are with our collections and curatorial team, kind of taking people behind the scenes of, into collection storage to get up close to stuff. Pretty much all our collections are actually stored on the ship. So, and we only have some of it on display. So it's nice to be able to open that up. Our aviation curator also does like a Aircraft of the Month series on YouTube and social media. So, we like to be able to open up and share
Yeah,
some things that you might not, normally have access to.
of course. Going along that, here's one little thing I just noticed. It says behind the scenes here, and then look at over here. Let me click. It says 7 videos or unavailable videos are hidden. That's where the good stuff is, I think.
That's
Probably in those 7 videos.
where the
Um,
secrets are. Mhm.
yeah, I guess. So if you can tell us, what's
Mhm.
next for the Intrepid? What's the next big thing?
Yeah, so we have a few big things coming up, which are pretty exciting. So I guess the most immediate thing is that in March we will be putting on display that the Corsair aircraft. This is a World War II aircraft. It'll be only the second World War II aircraft that we have on display in the museum. And so we're currently doing some of the restoration work on it, and we're going to be bringing it down into the hangar deck. So that's going to actually give us also the chance to update some of our interpretation when you first walk into the hangar deck. We're going to have some new introductory information, some more context for the museum. So that's going to be really exciting. That's going to open in March. So that'll open up some whole new storytelling, some new aircraft, and it'll be a nice connection with the Corsair parts that we have on display, the ones that were recovered off the coast of Japan from an aircraft, a Corsair that had crashed during World War II. So it'll be a nice bridge to that. So that is something we're really excited about. We'll also have starting work and continuing work on opening up a new area of the museum for the first time. So we recently received funding from IMLS, the Institute for Museum and Library Services, to continue the work on the ship's second deck. So this is an area of the museum that has never been open to the public before. It includes Intrepid's sick bay, which is basically the hospital on the ship, as well as the post office and the barber shop. And so as part of the IMLS grant, it's about developing accessible interactives to go into those spaces. But we've also been doing work with support from NEH to develop kind of experiment with putting projections into the space. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure work going into this to actually make it somewhere that's safe for visitors to go, cleaning up some of the asbestos and things like that. But, we've been working, our curatorial team has been working really hard, both in-house and with a outside curator and researcher to really flesh out the stories that we're going to be telling in these spaces. So this will, it'll be a few years before it opens, but it's going to be really exciting. It's a lot of work, and it's going to be a huge amount of space that we're opening to the public and bringing out stories that we haven't been able to really tell before. The hospital, the sick bay, almost everyone went through that at some point. And there's a lot of different types of stories you can tell with that about kind of what that experience was like to be in there, why people ended up there, what the experience was like afterward. And then with the barbershop and the post office, there's also really great stories because the post office, that was the connection. When Intrepid was in service, that mail was the way you kept in touch. And so that's such a meaningful part of the experience for people who served on the ship. So we're excited to bring that out.
So
And
I'm assuming
yeah.
I'm assuming mail would come on a plane.
Yeah,
land here.
helicopters, and they would
Okay.
deliver
And then
them.
it would be dispersed to all the members.
Yes. And
Good.
so it could come usually that way or from other ships. You'd have delivery ships that they would line up and send things across. So there are a few different ways they could get those deliveries. But yeah, mail day was huge.
Yeah.
And we had oral histories. The former crew members talk about how they could smell their mail because maybe their sweetheart was spraying their perfume on the letter, so they could know it was theirs coming out.
Yeah.
So it'll be really meaningful. We have so many letters in our collection, and so we're actually doing have an effort now to digitize more of those. So it'll be really exciting. And then with the barbershop, that's a chance for us to also talk about community on the ship and also talk about changes in kind of regulations and approaches to race on the ship and in the Navy, and how that was reflected in policy and everyday life on the ship. So a lot to really dig into, which we're excited about.
And so if someone is coming to the Intrepid for the first time, never been here before, where do you recommend they go? What should they do first? What should they do second? What's the best route or most optimized route you think a new person should go, in your opinion?
I think it depends. I'd say if you're coming on a busy day and there is not a line for the submarine, take advantage of that because there will eventually be a line. So you have to limit capacity at any time. So if you're comfortable with going through a tight space and going up and down the stairs, I'd say take advantage of that. And even if you don't want to go in the submarine itself, the exhibition about it is just so rich. So I'd say if you have the chance to get on there when there isn't a line, definitely take advantage of that.
Okay, so wait. So
mhm.
does someone have to go through the Intrepid to get onto the submarine?
No, so you enter the Welcome Center,
Okay.
which is the building off of 12th Avenue, and you go in there, you get your tickets, or if you're with a group, you'll get checked in there. You'll go out onto the pier. You can go to the submarine. If you're going into the ship, I tend to recommend starting in the hangar deck. So that's where you're going to get your orientation, where you're going to see models of the ship, so you can get a sense. We have one that's made out of Legos, and then we have a couple of others that are made of more traditional model material. But it's helpful to get oriented just because the models actually show how this ship changed over time. So, it wasn't static. They changed to adapt to the different technology. We see ourselves as kind of this intersection of history and innovation. And you can really see that when you're in the hangar deck, because you can see those changes over time, the changes in the aircraft, the changes in the way that the ship was designed and the way that the crew, the roles of the crew. So I recommend starting in the hangar deck to get that kind of grounding. If you're looking for something more hands-on, you can head to the back of the hangar deck where we have the Explorium, which is our fully hands-on space. We have some hands-on stuff around the museum, but that's fully hands-on, and that's really fun and immersive. And then, I recommend, if you're comfortable with it, taking kind of you can go back to the main staircase or elevator to get up to the flight deck. But I recommend, taking one of the other pathways. You can take the internal elevator, or you can take, if you're comfortable using stairs, take some of the stairs through some of those other historic spaces like the forecastle or the Combat Information Center, kind of wind your way up, see some of those historic spaces, and then take in the flight deck. And hopefully it's a nice day and you can really spend some time up there and keep exploring. So I think, if you're really into space, you're going to definitely want to go to the space shuttle. Make sure you take care of that. If you're into the aircraft, you're going to, you can take all the time you need with the different aircraft. And you can also, add on the Concorde if that's something you're interested in. And if you're really interested in like what the lived experience was, then I'd say go down to third deck as well and see what the berthing was like. Imagine how smelly it would be when you're hanging out on the equator with 30 young men without air conditioning or windows, and kind of imagine that sensory experience. So we don't type in the smells, but we encourage you to imagine.
You should. That would be fun.
If we do incorporate smell into some of our programs, but it's usually like the smell of coffee or
missed opportunity right there.
Something like that to like evoke those smells. We let you imagine the bad ones.
Okay.
But so I think it depends a little what you're looking for, but I say start in the hangar deck and go from there based on what you're looking for. On the accessibility side, one of the things that's been really exciting for me over my 11 years at the museum is how I've been able to see how accessibility has really, become a value of the museum and something that guides a lot of our work here. So, a lot of times, I say start with a program, like start with something. And that's, I'm very lucky that I had some predecessors here who kind of started some of those initial programs, like those early morning openings, for example. And so we have these specialized programs that we've been able to continue. We work with advisors who we pay to do that work and share feedback on all of this work. But we've gone beyond just having specialized programs to making sure that these are considerations in all of our education programs and public programs, so that we're thinking about multisensory experiences, so that we're thinking about visual supports, that we make it easy to request American Sign Language interpretation if you need, and that we're building in all that stuff, and that we're also thinking about it in the wider visitor experience through our exhibition design, including more kind of multisensory interactive components, being really thoughtful about the labels that we write here, including audio description in our app, kind of all of that, really seeing it as, museum-wide work. Our visitor services team is just really great at, making people feel welcome and answering those questions, directing people to what they are looking for. Because we want people to know that they can come and, experience it the way that they want. If it's something really highly structured, or if they just want to be able to come on their own, but know that they have, the support if they need it, they have someone they can ask if they need something. We want people to be able to do that. And so I think that's something that we really value here. And, we've done work with that. We actually have a project that we did with some other historic sites, as well as disability advocates and NYU Ability Project. It was a project called Making History Accessible, Toolkit for Multisensory Interpretation. So again, going back to that idea that we're not we see kind of this accessibility work not in competition with others, but rather something we want to make available to others. So, it's stuff we do in that. And, I have great colleagues who are doing work around, really innovating in the realm of teacher professional development, and, focusing on, bridging, civics education and STEM education, thinking a lot about, pipelines for youth into careers in aerospace. Like there's so much going on here. And so it's great to, be part of that team. So you asked at the beginning, why I've stuck around all this time. And I think it's because, we do have all these great projects that we get to continue innovating on.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you mentioned you have American Sign Language as an option to help people. So does that mean you have someone physically there when it's open?
Yeah, so we don't have someone all the time, but people can request it. So some of our public programs, we will just have American Sign Language interpretation available. So for astronomy nights, for example, all of our presentations have ASL interpretation. We'll have interpreters there for that. But then, if you're coming on a tour and you would like that, you can reach out to us and we'll arrange that at no cost to the visitor. So, we try to make sure that, information we have is available in different formats, and that, when we can, we'll arrange for additional supports as well.
That's really nice of you guys to do.
I mean, it's something we should be doing, and I hope more are able to do that. So, yeah.
And what I like is when you talk about it, you smile a lot.
And it's what I'm passionate about. So I'm happy to do it.